if you were a dairy farmer, you wouldn't buy dairy cows if you didn't have an end place to sell your milk to. So that's the same as what we had. We didn't have an end place. There is nowhere. In the hemp industry, it's like one of those industries where the more you experience it, the more you realise what the capabilities of the plant are. Australia is actually very far behind the times and the expansion of the hemp industry in regards to countries like Canada, America, Germany, Thailand. They're miles ahead.
Welcome to Mission Activated, where we bring you the stories of individuals who've awakened to their true purpose and are living a life of passion, impact, and alignment. I'm Aveline Clarke, your host, and I believe that when you're on mission, everything falls into place. Here, we share the journeys of those who've discovered their unique path and embraced their soul's calling. It's not just about making money in life and in business, it's about making a difference, living on purpose, and inspiring yourself and others along the way. Let's get to it. My next guest is the lovely Crystal White, who is actually a hemp farmer from northern New South Wales. She has a remarkable story, and what she talks about in this conversation, it really takes us out of our own little zones, because it explains not only an industry that is kind of still in its infancy of understanding, but also it shows what passion and purpose can really do. And when people combine together to create something for the greater good, this is what happens. And the Northern Rivers Hemp company that they've established with some other farms is really going great guns. And she is the spokesperson. Crystal shares the story of how she came into this world of hemp growing and what it means for them now, how they're influencing the community, even local government, and where they see it going. It's very exciting to see a new industry in Australia, and I really loved talking with Crystal. Enjoy this one. Hello, Crystal. How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Aveline. I'm really excited and honoured to be here. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to have you. I've been really excited about this conversation since we met, and I was obviously inspired to invite you on the show. So I'm really keen to introduce you to the audience, and I always like to ask my guests, first of all, whereabouts you live in the world?
So currently living in northern New South Wales, sort of near between Lismore and Nimbin, in a little area called Coffee Camp.
That sounds gorgeous.
Yeah, it's lovely. Up in the hills, beautiful green rolling hills, lots of rainfall. It's a good area.
Wonderful. And tell me, who do you serve in the world and how do you serve them?
Okay, well, I guess being in the hemp field, that's what we're doing. So we're growing hemp and serving people in regards to wellness, health, connecting people in community with in regards to the hemp industry. Just being part of community, part of a bigger group of people working towards the same goal.
I love that answer. I just want to tap into what you just said, because most people, when I ask that question, focus on their business. They say, this is my business, this is my product or my service, and these are the kind of clients that the customers we serve, and they talk a bit about that. Your answer went beyond that. Your answer actually didn't focus so much on the name of your business at all. You then talked about community and serving people and connecting people around and educating them, which I find really fascinating, because it shows me straight up that you have a big purpose, and that's not just the vehicle of your business. And
absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to getting into this more shortly. So tell me, you didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be in the hemp industry, live in Coffee Camp, northern New South Wales. Please, I'd love to know the journey that you've been on that's brought you to where you are today.
Okay, so personally, I grew up in the Northern Territory. I was born in the NT. I grew up in a very bush life. We were always in the bush, very in tune with nature. My dad was the first ever park ranger of Kakadu, so kind of gives you like a bit of an idea of where I've sort of come from. And about 16 years ago, my husband and I were looking for a bit of a change of scenery, and it was a big move from the Northern Territory. And we were sort of looking all over the East Coast, and we picked Northern Rivers region. And I, at that time, had been working in the disability industry my whole adult career. So from the time I was 17, and I was so passionate about it. I loved it. I said to the businesses that I was working in, you know, I'm here for the long haul, like invest in me. I'm going to be like, this is my thing. And then during the time of COVID, things changed, and it wasn't the right path for me to stay on for different reasons personally. And so I left my job and with nothing else to go to. And at that time, my husband had put in an application for us to farm hemp, and I sort of said, oh, you know, I don't want to do that. We'll be tarnished with, you know, the brush that people think you're doing the wrong things, and people's perceptions of hemp are just not where they need to be. And I just was worried about what that might mean for us. And so that was how I felt. Anyway, he put in the application, and it arrived in the mail a few weeks after I had finished up in my role. And he came into the kitchen and he said, guess what's arrived? And I said, well, what's that? And it was the application for our hemp farm, and it had been approved. And so it was kind of like, for me, this door opening, and I felt like, well, this is what it's meant to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I said, well, there's no other choice here right now. This is what I've been given. And so I jumped in, and I am not a green thumb, I'll tell you that. I can kill almost any house plant. But I learned, I really gathered on our Northern Rivers community here, who have a big history in the hemp and the cannabis side of things. And so I went to one lady's house. She taught me how to do cuttings. I went and bought seed off another one of our farmers, and I just immersed myself in the whole industry. And that's how I got on the journey personally for me in the hemp industry.
Wow. Was this, what I'd love to ask you, was it a sad moment for you to leave your job? You talked about being in disability and loving it so much. Was that a difficult time for you to let go of that?
I had been in that industry for 20 years, so 17 to 37. So like all of my adult working life, it was massive. I felt, I did definitely feel sadness, and I felt like, well, what am I going to do? Like, this is what I know. This is what I'm really good at and I'm passionate about. So yeah, there was definitely that bit of sadness. But when I left, I realized probably it was actually great timing for me, and I was ready to delve into something new and to experience something totally different. And the hemp and the being on a farm and in nature, in the dirt, in the fresh air, it's taken me back to my roots of living in the Northern Territory, and that's what I was. So it's kind of like come beautiful, you know, full circle for me. And I'm living the dream. It's really beautiful.
So tell me, you're on a farm, you're on land, yeah?
Yeah.
So how many acres have you got?
So we've got 75 acres here, and a lot of it's sort of rainforested. It's quite hilly, and so we've got our hemp plantation sort of down the back of our block, and we farm for biomass, which is flour. So we don't need large acreage for that. So our hemp is contained in a pretty small area. If you were doing broad acre, you would need to be on flatter area, sort of out west, but it works quite well for us here in the way of what we're farming. Yeah.
And how did your husband get interested in this?
It's something he's always been interested in. We both have. We've always sort of looked at, oh wow, did you see what, you know, what's been, you know, study that's come out today about hemp. Oh, did you see that you can use it for building? And do you know about carbon sequestration? And we've always sort of had these little conversations going, but and then when it became legal to grow in Australia, that's when he sort of really started to be interested. And of course, this is not the only thing that we do. We wear many other hats. We run a construction business. I also do work with bees in schools and primary schools. So the hemp is just another area that we've sort of branched off into. And yeah, we're sort of those kind of people that if we want to do something, we'll make it work. And so that's the journey that we're on with the hemp at the moment.
Fascinating. I've just got this real sense from you, Crystal, that you said, if you want to do something, you'll just get on and do it. And you've got this kernel of, for me, a reflection of this really strong Aussie spirit that I think is almost iconic. As certainly as an Australian, I know of that. We see these pictures of these hardworking farmers and, people that just get on and do things. And you seem to embody that. And
yeah. Thank you.
Would you agree with that?
I think so. And, it is that hardworking Aussie. I don't want anyone to look at it and think, oh, wow, they're living the dream. It's hard. Like, it's really hard. And that's what it is every day. Some days you think like, what are we doing? But it's, you just keep going. And I think we keep going for the purpose. For us is not about, originally it was about us growing and being able to sell what we grow to an end user, but we didn't have an end user. So we had to create Northern Rivers Hemp to be able to sell our product to an end user.
Can you tell me a bit more about that? So when you say an end user, just for the listeners, you obviously had the idea, or you'd started growing your hemp, had you? And then, or did you have to think about what kind of hemp you were going to grow first?
Yeah. So it was sort of like people grow for seed, or they grow for fibre, which is like the woody stalk. And there are a small group of people, mostly in the Northern Rivers, that are growing for biomass, which is the flower. And that's for the wellness and cosmetic industry. And so, we didn't really know which thing we were going into, but we knew it wasn't going to be fibre because we don't have a large flat area. And so right around the time that we were just getting into this, we hadn't even planted our first plants in the ground. Northern Rivers Hemp, there was murmurs of this cooperative of farmers that was going to be getting together, and they hoped to start a hemp cooperative, basically, and farm together and share resources. And it was in its absolute infancy. And we thought, okay, well, let's go along to one of these initial meetings. And there wasn't even a name at that point. It wasn't Northern Rivers Hemp. We didn't have a logo. There was nothing. It was literally a group of people getting together and saying, well, what do we need to do to make this work here for farmers and for Northern Rivers and for the economy and like for the broader hemp industry. Excuse me. And so we went to the meetings, and it was huge. There was hundreds of people at the meetings, and it dropped off with people sort of going, oh, it's not my thing, or I don't want to invest in this, because we had to create an entire business from scratch before we could even start selling our plant to Northern Rivers Hemp. So it was a massive learning journey for us all, and the final grouping of farmers came together, and we currently have 7 farms in Northern Rivers Hemp, and we've got our little shop in Nimbin. And so the aim was that we could all be the best growers, and we could grow all the flower or all the seed that we wanted to, but there wasn't really any end place in Northern Rivers or really on the East Coast for us to be able to sell that to. So, for example, if you were a dairy farmer, you wouldn't buy dairy cows if you didn't have an end place to sell your milk to. So that's the same as what we had. We didn't have an end place. There is nowhere. And so our dream is to start out, it's going to be supporting our 7 farms, and then we want to then expand it and extend it so that we can start working with other hemp farmers in the Northern Rivers region and further afield, and supporting them and being able to purchase the product off them as well to put into our range of products.
Wow. So with these 7 farms, do they all farm flower or seed, or do they farm all different, the biomass as well?
So we've got one farm out on flatter country, so they may start trialling some fibre. We've got 2 farms currently that are doing seed, and the rest are farming for flower. So it's just, we are just experimenting all the time. One of our farms, we call it like our R&D farm, and it's where we do all of our trials of different things, chipping and how to chip and how to decorticate, which is separating the stems to different, I guess, like chip and hurd and the long strand fibers and things like that. So we're doing a range of different things, and we're just ever experimenting. And I think in the hemp industry, it's like one of those industries where the more you experience it, the more you realize what the capabilities of the plant are. And so we find ourselves sometimes going like off on little tangents, going, oh, we could do hemp soap, oh, we could do hemp paper, and we're dabbling in all of these things, which is really, really exciting to, it's just endless uses for the hemp plant. So it's pretty exciting for Northern Rivers.
It's really exciting for the country, I think, and for the industry as a whole. It sounds to me, I wonder if businesses back, generations ago when they started other industries went through the similar thing. We haven't had a new industry like this, a natural plant-based industry, for I don't know how long. So you're in a really unique and interesting time to be doing this. And would you say that your cooperative are you spearheading? Are you leading the way? Are you one of the, leading kind of groups to create these products in Australia?
We're not the leading group to create hemp cosmetic products, but as far as I know, we are the only farmer-owned hemp cooperative in Australia. So there's lots of private companies or people who set up things just themselves individually, but we're the only ones that we know of that are doing it as a licensed cooperative. And yeah, it's I feel like we are spearheading the industry, like from a farming perspective. We're all regular farmers. None of us have mega money behind us or anything. So we're doing it all natural, as close to nature as possible, outdoors, in the sun, in the rain, and just trying to do it organically and within community, really. So
Going back to you hearing about this cooperative that was about to start up, you were obviously in a position where you could have just gone on your own, but you decided after meeting everybody and going on those meetings that you wanted to be part of that cooperative. How different do you think your path would have been had you just gone on your own and just set up your farm and farmed on your own, sold on your own, versus being in that cooperative?
So I think initially, early on in the start of the co-op, this was a discussion that we all had. Like, well, why would people want to join a cooperative? Why would we not just go out on our own? And the reason is that we've only been operating for around 3 years, the Northern Rivers Hemp Growers Cooperative. But in that 3 years, what we've managed to do, because we are drawing on everybody in the co-op skills. So, we have a person who's an ex-banker and accountant. So he's doing all of our accounting side of things. I like the social media. So I'm running all the social media side of things. We have another person who's really into design. So she does labels and website. And then we've got farmers who are not into any tech at all, not keen at all. So they're doing like the on-farm R&D and talking about soil quality and all of that. So it's because we want to be a collective and a part of a community, and be able to say, you know what, I'm having a really hard day today. It's rained nonstop here in Northern Rivers, and have someone on the other end of that phone to pick up and go, I'm hearing you. I know what you're talking about. So for us, it's just this constant drawback to working together. And let me tell you, sometimes it's not easy when we're a cooperative and we all have equal shares. We have to take into consideration everybody's opinions, everybody's vote on different things. So we get together once a month and we have a big meeting. It goes for half a day and we talk about where we're up to, what's happening with different things. And the difference is, if you run your own business, you get the final say on everything, but you don't get the input from everyone else. You don't get different people's opinions and different people's, connections to, hey, I know a great photographer, and oh, look, my friend does weaving. We could weave with him. You don't get that community connection. So yeah, you'd be able to make decisions easier if you did it and managed it yourself, but it's about being together as part of a group.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
I would suspect that, like you mentioned, the various skills and expertise of everybody is just exponentially compounded in that group rather than you just being on your own.
Exactly. And it took us a long time to work out, different people's personalities and how we're going to work together, and what their skills were, and, you know, uh, pulling those skills or seeing a skill in someone and saying, hey, you're really great at writing. Why don't you write some articles for the paper, or for any media releases that we do? You're really great at that. And like promoting people's skills and passion in a way that helps the business, but really makes them shine too.
Mm, mm. I focus on the reason I asked that is because in Six Star, we talk about business and life, and that when we do things together, it really makes a difference. Everything is enhanced. It's more enjoyable. We actually do more together better.
Yeah.
So it's not just the social aspect and that connection in the community. It's like, 1 + 1 = 3, you know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you're getting so much more.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, you know, you can take a week off and go on a holiday because everyone else will keep things going. They'll keep the business running. They'll keep doing the bits and pieces that need to be done. And it works. It seems to work quite well. But like I said, it's not always easy as when you're working with such a large group of people. But we're definitely on our path now to working to having realized how this works and how to gather people's skills and knowledge. Another reason why we decided as a cooperative would be better is because things in the hemp industry like testing, getting testing results done, R&D, these things cost huge amounts of money, ongoing costs. So for us to get our hemp sampling of an oil done, we get it done at Southern Cross University. It's around $600 for a batch. And so if somebody is trying to run a business creating these kinds of products by themselves, those are huge outlays constantly. Whereas if we're all doing it together, it's makes it a little bit easier, I guess, to
Mm,
deal with things like that.
absolutely. Yeah. Looking back on the decision to come together as the cooperative, the 7 farms, what would you say was the unifying belief or core thing that drew you together?
Definitely. It's funny because it's shifted a little bit, but I think initially it was, we want to grow hemp and we need a place to sell it. So we have to create a place to sell it. That's what it was
Mhm.
initially,
Yep.
especially for me because I hadn't been in the industry a long time. There was a few farmers who'd been in the industry for many, many years. So for them, they were past that wanting to sell it. They were about people and helping people. That's what it was about for
Mm.
them. And now that's where I've shifted to as well because we have people coming into our shop all the time, buying our products online, and people, it just really makes your heart sing when someone comes in and says, that oil that I've been rubbing on my elbow or on my knee after I had my surgery has helped me so much that I can get a solid night's sleep now. It's just like, wow, like it just makes you feel, I get tears in my eyes when people come into the shop and have those kinds of conversations with me, because it makes you realize, like, it's not just a face cream or it's not just an oil. It has people are actually getting benefits from it, which is amazing.
Mm, mm. So what would you say that your reason for doing this now is?
It definitely shifted to be
Mm,
about people, for sure.
mm.
Um, Definitely. I mean, people, and still also, in the back of my mind, it's about creating another industry in New South Wales and in Australia, for farmers. Farming is like there's less and less things happening in our country and more is being outsourced. But Australia is really a prime location for the growing of hemp. We have beautiful climate, great rainfall. We have, flatter land, and we also have hilly land. So we have an amazing opportunity to grow this industry within the country. And I think that can only be a benefit to farmers and then also to the economy. And then it just also means that Australians are getting a product from our country that is grown within Australian standards, and it's not being imported from other countries and potentially uh,
Mm.
I mean, at the port, they gamma radiate anything that's coming in from other countries. And so that's gamma radiation. So they don't actually have to disclose that when it is imported. But I mean, that's something that we don't have to do because we're not importing, we're growing it here. So it's about, it's about people's health, about people's well-being. It's about a clean, natural product that's grown outdoors with no chemicals and pesticides. It's just, that's also beneficial for the planet. So
You said quite a few things there, just to pick up on it. So any kind of food or um, produce item that comes in the country gets gamma radiation. Is that right?
yep, as far as I know, that's what we've been told, and it's to ensure that there's no mold, bacteria in there. Obviously, things that are brought into the country sometimes, especially if it's like an oil, uh, they will have like their importing papers, but sometimes are fudged and don't need to necessarily say exactly what's in there, because Australian standards don't have that as a requirement for things like hemp oil. So it's it's a pretty major thing. And the scariest thing is they don't have to disclose that their products have been gamma radiated. So it's I think better for, if people are in the organic or they buy natural produce or they want to grow their own produce in Australia because they want what's best and healthiest for their body, then as far as I can see, hemp would be the same thing, that people would be wanting natural, non-chemical, grown outdoors instead of under hydroponic lights in a automated setup. So yeah.
That absolutely. So for listeners, you might want to go do your own research about the impacts of gamma radiation, if you care about what you put in your body. You also said no chemicals. So this might be news to the listeners. So hemp doesn't require chemicals or pesticides, fungicides. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a pretty pest-resistant plant, really. So we grow a cultivar called King G, and it's really quite hardy, very large trees. And yeah, they're pretty pest-resistant. We do have to go down and we do check for things like caterpillars when it's coming close to harvesting. And if we get caterpillars, it's a big problem. But we manage that with natural sprays, or we'll use things like, if we're trying to fertilize, we might use things like molasses instead of, or we'll use sea salt type solutions and things like that. We also can use bugs for bugs, which is using So you identify what your pest is on your plant. They're very pest resistant, but if you did have a pest, you could identify it, and you send a photo to a company in Queensland actually called Bugs for Bugs, and they will help identify what the bug is that's on your plant, and then they will tell you a natural bio mediation, I guess, to purchase. So it could be ladybugs, and so you purchase from them a huge amount of ladybugs, and they post them to you in a little box, and you release them in your hemp field. Or there's like wasps on paper strips and things like that. So there's lots of different things that we can do to try and stay away from all of those nasty chemicals. And then with Northern Rivers Hemp, we also go a step further, and we can control what happens on our farm, but we can't control what's happening on neighbouring farms. And so there may be overspray from neighbouring farms, not hemp farms, but, other farms in the region. And so when we have harvested and we've grown and we've done our oil infusion, and we have our final product and it's ready for testing, we get a third layer of testing done down near Sydney, and that tests for herbicides, pesticides, mold, E. coli, like a whole range of different things that shouldn't be in people's food but often are. And so we have the testing data to back that as well.
Fabulous. Now, I'd love to just briefly go into the benefits. Well, I don't know how brief you can be, but hemp, I think it maybe just to start, let's talk about benefits for people, because they might not have really understood the difference between cannabis and hemp. And of course, most people understand cannabis as weed. That's the thing that you're not supposed to, the illegal one, getting high. And then we've got hemp. So do you want to just maybe start with just a quick description of the two and then talk about the benefits of hemp?
Yeah. So actually, cannabis is the overarching name, and hemp falls under cannabis. So hemp is actually cannabis, so the easier way to differentiate between what is hemp is in New South Wales, hemp has to be grown below 1% THC. So THC is the psychoactive compound that if you were smoking marijuana would make you high. So hemp has less than 1% THC to be called hemp. And if it's above 1% THC, then it is called marijuana, or many other names, as we all know. So we are under strict regulations. We get tested by the Department of Primary Industries. They come out and test. We have to notify them when we're planting. We have to notify them when we've finished harvesting. We have to provide an annual report of how much we've harvested, what we've done with it, where it has gone. So it's highly regulated, and DPI come and do testing to make sure that our plants stay under that 1%. So that's the difference between hemp and cannabis, is the 1% in New South Wales.
Okay, great. Yeah. So what do people use it for, or can they use it for?
Yeah. So our products are labelled as topical use only because we can't go into the medicinal side of things. However, they are grown to food, or grown and made to food grade standards. So we've got things like a face cream. Our top selling product is it's mixed with other natural botanicals. So rosemary, peppermint, wintergreen, arnica, hemp, and kunzia, and that's another Australian plant, and that is our top selling product. And it's like a muscle rub for sore joints. If you think of something like deep heat, it's similar to that, like a sports rub.
Oh, lovely.
So hemp is great for inflammation. It's just got a myriad of different uses. Some people do choose to consume it, and it helps with things like insomnia, getting to sleep, anxiety, and then taking it in the day is great around being on the ball, prepared, ready for your day, and not forgetting too many things.
I know a number of people who swear by hemp, who've taken it for a while, and obviously America, it was decriminalized. I think that's the word, over there a number of years ago, and a couple of friends, started using that there's been a lot of research into it. I know there's been documentaries into the benefits of this, especially around cancer and treating like illnesses as well as just general well-being. So for listeners, I think it's worthwhile you doing your own research and, understanding that. I know in Australia also, has it been about 2 years since the government approved some trials of the product of hemp for patients in a clinical setting on anxiety and different ailments, I believe, and they were just very specific trial groups, and they've been doing that. Are you
So
aware about that?
I don't know a lot around that specific study, but yeah, there's just, if people do their research there, you can look up, don't just go to Google and Google things. Look up scientific journals, look up peer-reviewed studies. That's where there is just so much information there around hemp supporting things like epilepsy, Dravet syndrome. There's lots of different things, inflammation. Obviously, I have to be really careful, and I'm just going to be really honest. I have to be quite careful with what we say because we work in the wellness industry. So we're actually not allowed to have anything on our labels or do any kind of discussion around medicinal. But that's just our business. But I mean, people can do their own research, and there's so much information out there about the benefits of hemp. It's amazing.
If you're loving this conversation and want to dive deeper into purposeful work, then it's time to thank the 6-Star Leaders community for making this episode possible. The 6-Star Leaders are a group of purpose-driven business owners committed to doing business differently by embracing their unique genius and skills to make a real impact. It's a space for learning, growth, and truly becoming empowered in everything that you do. If you're ready to discover your own 6th star, go to bit.ly/6-star community-intro and book a chat to learn more. We look forward to seeing you. Yeah, there are so many uses. My little dog had a dermatitis on his paws and he was ripping the fur off, and I used the hemp for him, and it was so fast, within just a few days. It was all sorted and he wasn't ripping it off anymore and the fur's all growing back now. But there are so many uses for it, and it's exciting. And I think also for people like me who care about what we put on our skin, it's a fabulous, ingredient. It's a fabulous industry. There's so much that we can benefit and gain from it, as not just as a country, but individually. And I'm really interested to know about the industry itself. I mean, you've talked about regulations. As a farmer, the regulations you've got to deal with, but this is an industry that it's almost like I see this. I've got this visual of like, I don't know, these big walls that have been down for so many decades, right? Or for forever. And then slowly but surely, these little, like, the walls are slowly starting to come up, but there's still some protection around this. Talk to me about what's going on in the industry.
Yeah.
Share with us. Yeah. So I'm
I
sure
think
there's
it's a good
interesting
analogy. I see the wall as still being high with some little holes in it here and there where we're poking our heads out trying to say, hey guys, this is pretty amazing. So I guess in regards to Australia, I'll just give you a quick backstory here. So a few years back, I think it was 2018, I'd have to double check, but there was an application put in through Fazance by a man named Andrew Cavasilis, and he was putting in for hemp seed to be allowed to be consumed by people in Australia. And that application went through and was successful after many, I think he said to me it was like 10 years that he had been trying to get this allowed so that we could eat hemp seed in Australia. So people are allowed to consume hemp seed now. However, we're not allowed to consume the leaf. We're not allowed to consume the flower, any part of the sprout. We can't sell the flower to farms for to cafes for juicing. We're not allowed to even put the flower ground up into things for like an exfoliation in soap. We're not allowed to do that. So all of this beautiful product that could be used has to be buried back into our soil on our farms, which is really sad. You know, I've got there's a wood-fired pizza place, and he wants some of our stalks. We can use the stalks, but there's also cafes in our local town who want the leaves for juicing and for putting in you know, paleo brownies and things like that with hemp leaf in it, and we're not allowed to do that. So Australia is actually very far behind the times in regards to this, and the expansion of the hemp industry in regards to countries like Canada, America, Germany, Thailand. They're miles ahead, which is, it's okay for Australia because we can look at how they rolled things out and what issues they had along the way so that Australia can hopefully do it better with less regulations along the way. So currently there is another fazance application in for the consumption of those other things, the leaf, the sprout, and they haven't said flower. I think they've said biomass in the application. So who knows how long that will be if people are actually allowed to be able to consume that. But that's where sort of that consumption side of things are up to in Australia. But in regards to the industry as a whole, there's so many different parts. Like there's, you know, as I've said, there's the food side of things, the fiber, cosmetics, pet bedding, pet oils, clothing, textiles. It's a massive industry. So every year in our little local town, Nimbin, which has a major history, I'm sure people know about it, around marijuana and around cannabis. And so each year we have a festival in Nimbin. It's actually coming up in a few weeks' time, and it's called Mardi Gras, and it's around the prohibition of cannabis. And remember, hemp does fall under that mother tree of cannabis. So it's talking about hemp and marijuana. And yes, the festival has a huge push around marijuana, but it also has a massive focus around hemp building, hemp carbon sequestration, lots of different things around hemp. So last year at Mardi Gras, we had lots of politicians come, which happens every year. Especially people like Jeremy Buckingham. He's works with. He's the Minister for Legalised Cannabis, and remembering cannabis, still hemp falls under that. So we're not talking about only about high THC. We're talking about hemp too. And there was MPs from Western Australia, Victoria, Dr. Brian Walker, David Eddershank, they were all there. And so we had a pollies chat, basically, where all the pollies came together on these beautiful stones out the front of our shop in Nimbin. And we talked to them about, as farmers, where we're at and what's happening from our perspective in the industry and what we need to move this forward. And it was just this very unplanned, very chit-chatty kind of a conversation. And from that, things really snowballed. And we had those people were so supportive of what we're doing and of seeing that it's not about our business. It's about community, the whole of Northern Rivers, the whole of Australia, and what we could do with this plant moving forward. So from that, I was in talks with Minister Jeremy Buckingham, and he invited Northern Rivers Hemp, and so myself and one other rep from Northern Rivers Hemp, one other farmer, I should say, went down and we met at Parliament House in Sydney with the Minister for Agriculture, Tara Moriarty, and Jeremy Buckingham, and a whole heap of other really influential people in the hemp industry in New South Wales. And we talked to them about that, about what's happening, what we need, why things are stagnating, why things are not moving forward, the issues, and the potential for this great industry in the country. And very, very quickly, this was in, I think, October of 2023, and very, very quickly that turned around, and the Minister for Agriculture pulled together, which is massive, a New South Wales hemp task force, and it's got key players from the hemp industry in it. And we meet virtually once a month, for a meeting that goes for around 3 hours, and we are mapping out the issues in the industry, the regulations, what we need, what's not working, and come up with some solutions. And so we're doing that every month for a year, and hopefully at the end of that we will have maybe some change. And I'm certainly not promising anything, because it's a lot of learning, a lot of educating, and a long journey before you get anywhere with a field like this that's been so heavily, tightly regulated. So, but we're on the right path, and that's all we can keep doing, is keep talking with people, keep educating people. And so this year, at the Mardi Gras Festival in Nimbin, Northern Rivers Hemp for the first time are running and coordinating all of the industrial hemp talks. So we've pulled people from, different, like paper making and carbon sequestration, different areas to talk around their specialty in regards to hemp. So, yeah, it's exciting times for Australia. I think, we've still got a way to go, but maybe I think about it like we're setting ourselves up, not us, but like everyone in the whole industry, or anyone who's interested in coming into the industry, setting ourselves up now with a good foundation so that we can move really well and hopefully seamlessly when the time comes.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating and encouraging and exciting, Crystal. What would be the ultimate outcome for you at the end of this 12 months with the task force?
I think if I'm thinking about it from me and from my perspective in Northern Rivers Hemp, we have a lack of facilities here on the east coast of Australia to process the fibre of the hemp. So that's called a decortication facility, and there isn't one on the east coast of Australia. So if we wanted to grow for things like pet bedding, textiles, clothing, and also building materials, we would need a decortication facility, and there is not one here, and they are very, very expensive to set up and run. And so that for me, if we had a decortication facility somewhere on the east coast of Australia, sort of centralised, that would really, really help the industry to open up. Like I said, people won't go through all of the regulation, go through the expense of getting a license, have all DPI coming and checking on everything on your property. They won't go through these kinds of things unless they know if they plant a crop, they have an end place to sell it to. And if we don't have decortication facilities to be able to separate those materials for the different required end user products, then we don't really have an industry. So it's there's a huge lack in regards to that. And then also from our perspective, we're really hoping that the Fazance application goes through for consumption. We create full spectrum hemp oils, so that's nothing is taken out of the plant. Everything that naturally occurs in the plant remains in the plant. So that's all of the cannabinoids, flavonoids, terpenes that are occurring in the plant, including CBD that everybody knows about and talks about CBD. And so if the Fazance application went through, that would really change our business. We could then go into things like hemp edibles, hemp gummies, and still remembering we're talking about hemp, not things that are going to get you high. We're talking about the benefits of people being able to consume those products legally. Yeah.
So those people in the task force, would they have a strong ability or bearing on the decision of that Fazance application?
No, not at all. No, the application is it's entirely separate. And I guess that's really important thing to talk about, is that the task force is there to say, these are our issues, this is what we're having problems with, and it's actually up to government to change regulations. We don't get the say in those final things. There may be some things that we can have a little bit of influence on, but that's up to policymakers and all of the people in those kinds of positions to make those kinds of rules. So I'm not sure, timeframes of the Fazance application, I think it's going to be still quite some time.
Do you think the outcome of the task force might be an ingredient for them to make a quicker decision?
Yeah, I think absolutely education is key in this. Massively key. We still see politicians getting up in Parliament talking around hemp and trying to promote the benefits of hemp, and then we have other politicians heckling, saying, "Oh, I think you've been smoking too much weed. That's not going to happen." And it's just crazy when we hear this kind of stuff, because it's people are still not understanding that it's not the same. There is a very clear definition here between hemp, between low THC and high THC cannabis. And that's sort of how we're trying to continually talk about it, is low THC and high THC cannabis. Yeah, so it's just a constant education for people in Australia. And the tide is definitely shifting. It definitely is. We have a lot of travellers, baby boomers, people on motorbikes, families coming through Nimbin, and then they come into our store. I can safely say to them, everything we do in this store is legal, and you will not get in trouble for anything in this store, because everything we do is above board and legal. But, there's that constant fear and that misunderstanding around, low THC and high THC. So for us, it's a new industry, but it's not as easy a new industry as what it should be, because we're trying to also deal with that stigma from many, many years. So
yeah, it's old school thinking. I think your challenge is re-education.
Absolutely. Yep.
Unlearning the old stuff that doesn't apply anymore, and then learning the new.
Yeah, for sure. And this is one of the things we brought up in one of the very first task force meetings, was exactly that, around needing to educate people around, the differences, basically, and the benefits.
In a way, you're a truth seeker, aren't you, Crystal? Because, you've gone right into this industry full of heart. You've found along the way a purpose and a reason for being. That passionate side of you is able to be utilized as you see the benefits that people are getting from it. Like you talked about when they come into the store and they talk about the changes they've made. And yet I see this other side to you, which is just the truth seeker, the warrior, the one that wants to get the truth out to the world. And
absolutely.
That's what really inspires me. And
it's so
I just
tricky.
love everything that you're doing.
Thank you. It is. That's exactly what it is. It's so tricky, because we have to tread so carefully. There's things we can't say. We can't talk about. We have a rule in our shop that anyone who's working in a shop can't say the word medicine, because we're just not allowed to, because that's not, it's not. Yeah, it's such a tricky thing. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to show people, not just anecdotally, but scientifically, here's the evidence. Here is what, the benefits of this plant, not just for people, but for the environment as well, and our future generations. And all of our farmers have children. And so I think collectively between all of our 7 farms, there's something like 14, 16 children or something. There's a lot of little kids. And so, this is part of it too, is our social media. If my daughter's down in the paddock with me and we're harvesting or we're just checking plants, I take a photo of her and I put it up, because that, for people, seeing a picture of a little child riding a bicycle through a hemp field is like, oh my goodness. But it's like, guys, it's not marijuana. We're talking about hemp here. So it's just this constant education and, telling the truth and showing the truth, and not hiding anything. We're just trying to be open and honest and clear with what we're doing, and we hope for some change.
Yeah, absolutely. Just some reflective thoughts as we come to a close. I can't remember exactly the first time I started to research hemp, but I remember thinking about it, and I think the way that it was presented to me was, this plant has so many uses. It would literally change our economy. It would change the way what we consume, how we consume things we put. The uses of it are huge. Even fuel. we're talking for cars, the material itself is so robust that you can build houses with it. I mean, it literally would change our lives. And Australia is behind the times when we look at our other Western nations, but it's progressing. And I think the more that you can do the things that you're doing, Crystal, and connect with politicians, keep spreading the truth and educating people and shining your light, the more it will spread and give people permission to feel safe. And I think the stigma from the old, for me, my memory was that there was a stigma. And if you went across that line, it was like you wouldn't be safe because it was that legal side of it. But it's like, no, you're allowed to use this. It's safe. Not only safe, it's so healthy and it's so helpful in so many ways. I think I applaud you for what you're doing, and you are certainly a purposeful leader. I've been so engrossed in our conversation, I haven't been able to ask you the question I always ask my guests, which is, what does being 6-star mean to you?
Ooh, I guess it's that it's not about me. It's like higher purpose. So it's like, if it was just about me, I would just have kept running the businesses that we're already running, because we're okay. But it's not. It's about people, community, spreading knowledge, sharing. It's about. I always keep going back to community, really, because that's why we gathered and became Northern Rivers Hemp. And that's what drives us, is our little grouping of community, but also gathering in other people who, fit into part of the puzzle of how it all works. So I guess the purpose is people and community.
I love that. Yeah. And that's evident by everything that you've shared. It's beautiful, really powerful and inspiring. How can people get in touch with you?
So if they want to get in touch with me, I'm Crystal, Crystal, at nrhemp.com.au. That's my email. And I also run our Facebook and Instagram pages. So if you message there, it's most likely going to be me who will be replying to you. If you want to get in touch with Northern Rivers Hemp, you can go to our website and there's a little form that you can fill in. We've also got a 1300 number that you can call. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Crystal. I'm so excited for everything you're doing. And I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you in a few weeks at the Mardi Gras. So
yeah,
I'd like to overcome my own fears.
Yeah, not as scary as everyone makes it out to be.
Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Mission Activated. If today's conversation resonated with you, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Remember, your mission matters. When you live on purpose, not only do you transform your own life, but you inspire others to do the same. Until next time, stay aligned, keep activated. I'll see you then.